Hello everyone, welcome back to the Looney Bin. My name is Looney, and congratulations to all the Blue Exorcist fans who have stuck with the series for over 10 years, I think. It started in 2013, so it's more than 10 years, where there was a small hiatus where it took a long time for a new chapter to come out, but the wait was worth it, especially if you are a shipper of Rin and Shiemi. That's right, Blue Exorcist, written by Kazuo Kato, finally had its romantic subplot concluded with a wonderful confession, wonderful conclusion to the romantic subplot that really showcases how well the author handled it. Because in the most recent chapter of Blue Exorcist, Rin and Shiemi have been confirmed to become canon as they both confessed to each other that they liked each other romantically. And I must say, I think this was one of the better written romances, better written confessions I have read from a shonen author in a very long time. You know, a lot of the times I critique shonen writers because sometimes they're afraid of writing romances. They're afraid of expressing one of the strongest human emotions in the world, which is love, right? And I think the author for Blue Exorcist did a tremendous job in showcasing just how well you can write a romance for a shonen series. Shonen series have always been, regarded as, fight only first, the action, the adventure, whatever. But a lot of shonen series has that element of romance, right? Of course, not a lot of shonen series have a great written romance that people would vibe with. Sometimes they just do it out of obligation, or not even have a confirmation for any ship because they're afraid of the backlash. For example, My Hero Academia. While most, Izuku and Ochaku shippers will agree that, the last epilogue chapter of My Hero Academia was a confession between Deku and Ochako, there's still a lot of debate in regards to whether or not that's just people coping or not. That's up to them. But really, it wasn't as great of a confession or a great conclusion to a romance compared to how Blue Exorcist handled it. I think by comparison, Blue Exorcist handled it much, much better. So in the recent chapter, or technically in the last I'd say about the last 3 chapters or so, we've closely got to the point where Rin and Shiemi were essentially getting very close to confessing to each other. She finally figured out what her feelings are for Rin, despite the fact that many chapters prior, she did not understand and she wasn't sure of her feelings for Rin because she believed that what she was feeling and her relationship with Rin were just as friends. And of course, Rin was absolutely devastated that, Shiemi only saw him as a friend or didn't understand the type of confession, he was trying to tell her. He does kind of, really explain it to him, right? He explains it to her, but she was still not there. She wasn't there yet in terms of the confession or how she really felt about Rin. Then as the story progressed and we learn more about Shiemi's backstory and we learn more about how the importance of Shiemi is during, their fight with Satan, it slowly began to develop where, Shiemi finally realized that she does have feelings for Rin. And throughout this entire time, as they're heading into this final climax, or the story's heading to this final climax, they try to avoid each other or try to hold back their feelings, for the sake of beating Satan first, right? And really, in the last several chapters, Rin and Shiemi finally reunite after an incident happens where Shiemi falls down and Rin goes after Saber. Shiemi finally tells Rin that she likes him. However, Rin, because of, the trauma of his own confession being rejected and the way Shiemi responded to, his confession, Rin had the same reaction in that, so you just like me as a friend, I'm glad. They get into a sort of a lover's quarrel, I should say, I don't know why I said squirrel, but quarrel, where, Rin's like, what, you hate me? Oh my god, why do you hate me? That kind of thing. And, they're not communicating well with each other about, their mutual interest with each other, that they both like each other romantically, until Shiemi gets a little push, right? And then eventually Shiemi goes sees Rin and finally is able to communicate to Rin that the feelings that she has been experiencing, right, and the feelings that she has finally acknowledged is that she likes him romantically. Rin wanted to make sure that he was hearing her right, and when he finally is able to fully understand that Shiemi is talking about it in a romantic sense, he is happy Rin, and it's really wholesome. And if you haven't read it, I highly recommend reading the last 3 chapters of Blue Exorcist that appeared. I believe it's chapter 158. I have to double check. You'll probably see it on the bottom of the screen just to make sure. I just didn't remember what the chapter number is. But yeah, I recommend reading the last 2 chapters because it's a really good confession and really a romance done right in terms of a shonen series, right? Because there is a very important aspect to this confession that a lot of people don't really realize is very important. So after they confess and they're all, happy, they hug, and it's such a wholesome scene where like Rin isn't sure if he's allowed to hug her. When she gives, the consent, Rin finally does hug her, and they're happy, they're cheerful, they're sitting, head leaning against each other. They look like two couple of happy dorks in love. It's a really wholesome moment. And another aspect that I really did enjoy about this confession is that it's basically a replication of how Shiemi helped Rin, saving him from his, really mental breakdown, his really trauma of his flames being dangerous to those around him, dangerous to those he cares about, his friends, and that, because he has these blue flames, he's seen as a danger to those, to those he's close to, right? And Shiemi is the one that really helps him overcome that fear. She's the one that goes to him, realizing that he's lonely, that he's afraid, that, he needs someone at his side. And she goes and hugs him. She's not afraid of his flames because his flames don't hurt her, right? She finds his flames soothing. And by hugging him and making him realize that, he shouldn't be afraid of his flames because his flames are there to help people, right? He's kind. He's a kind individual. And Shiemi is the one that really helps him realize this. And now when we go to the confession, it's essentially a replication of that, but it's switched in reverse, right? Shiemi feels like, she has this burden that she has to and believes that she has to take on by being someone who, wants to help others. She wants to be strong enough, and she feels, that she can't be that person that can help others, that no matter how much, how much she trains, how much she believes in herself, that, she feels like she can't help others. And that brings her down, that makes her lose her confidence. And Rin is the one this time that tries and succeeds in making her realize that she doesn't need to, have such a burden on herself. That she doesn't need to feel like she needs to catch up, that she feels like she's useless and that she can't help anyone, right? She can. She's there. She is someone who is going to stand by, Rin and everyone else because that's just how strong she is. And Rin is the one that helps her overcome that. So it's a real mirror of how, they both help each other. And that's a great way of showcasing not only trust, but like how strong they are together. They bring up each other. They boost each other's confidence. So I really do enjoy how Kato really showcased this in his story. It's just so brilliantly done. But another aspect that I really enjoyed with how the author handled it is actually on Yukio's side. Because as we know, Yukio did have a crush on Shiemi. Yukio being Ren's brother, right? Because of the interactions and the friendship that Yukio had with Shiemi, it essentially boiled down to Yukio finally coming to terms with that Shiemi had feelings for Rin, and Rin, shared the same feelings back, right? Rin knew or had this feeling that Yukio did have feelings for Shiemi, which is why Rin asked Yukio if he was angry. Yukio responded by saying, "No, I'm not angry," and then left as Shiemi and Rin went on to have that confession. So now they're at a camp and they're observing, the two becoming, romantically involved. And of course, Izumo, who has been, on Shiemi's side this entire time, was very happy that, Shiemi and Rin were finally able to confess each other. And she acted like every single Rin and Shiemi shipper out there, which is, oh my god, it finally happened, yes! She's the embodiment of many shippers around the world, right? And she then talks to Yukio about, the relationship between Rin and, Shiemi. She is not aware that Yukio had feelings for Shiemi. She just assumed that the conversation that they were having was just about, like, how do you feel about, Rin finally getting, a girlfriend, or, finally being in love with somebody, It just is like, getting a brother's aspect, or, like, introspective about how does it feel for, his brother finally, getting a girlfriend or something, right? That was the intention behind why she asked Yukio that. Then Yukio kind of confesses, not directly confesses, but confesses that, he thought that he would be different. He would act different. He would feel different about it. That he felt like he would get angry. He felt like, he wouldn't accept the reality that is in front of him. That, Rin and Shiemi are now canon. But he, for the most part, is not angry. He's happy. He's relieved. He's like, you know what? Despite my own feelings, this doesn't bother me because the two most important people in his life are happy together, and he would do anything to make sure that, they're happy. Their happiness is far more important than mine, which is a very admirable thing. A lot of the times when you see certain romances, you see certain characters be like, oh, it's fine. If she really loves this person, I am more than happy to give up my feelings because her happiness is essentially more important than mine, which at times is kind of sad when you really think about it. But I think Yukio slowly made the realization that Rin and Shiemi really liked each other, and that he was ready to give up his own feelings because he loved both of them very much, and that their happiness was far more important to him than his own. Very admirable. Izumo didn't realize that, Yukio had feelings for Shiemi. It was like, oh my god, kind of shocked and like, oh, why did I, oh my god, why did I say this to him, But that's one thing that I really enjoyed about this whole confession, is that the author isn't just, giving their perspective of this romance through Rin and Shiemi, but also with other characters involved, such as Yukio and Izumo, right? Because think about it, like, we knew that Yukio had some sort of feelings for Shiemi. We didn't know that if Rin and Shiemi will become canon, how would Yukio respond, right? In the end, Yukio became, the mature one who accepted that, their happiness was far more important. It's very important for any author when writing romance, especially when you have multiple characters who have feelings for another, to have that conclusion for them. A lot of times when people write love triangles, a lot of people think that, if one side, happily confesses with each other, with the other, the third part of the triangle not having some sort of conclusion, it's fine. It's not. You need that conclusion for that one character. While this, story didn't really necessarily have a love triangle, it did involve two twins, two brothers who both had feelings for the same person, right? But the author handled it very well, right? And the way Yukio was finally able to come to this conclusion, to come to this mature response that their happiness is far more important than what I want, and I don't want to be selfish, and that he doesn't feel angry. He feels relieved. He feels, that acceptance. That, what? I'm happy for them. I could finally move on. You need those conclusions. You need to see those conclusions. And that's why I think this was really handled well, because it really gave the conclusion of each and every aspect of this whole love plot line, this subplot line. it gave the two characters who had feelings for each other finally the confession and finally became canon, as well as the conclusion of the other characters who share similar feelings for one of the two characters, right? And it's really well written. It's a really good confession. That slow burn that we've had experienced with Blue Exorcist, especially when there was that long hiatus where, Blue Exorcist was just not, serialized for quite a while. We finally get a definitive conclusion and a really great romantic conclusion to the Rin and Shiemi ship. I think this was really well written. One of the better shonen written, subplot lines ever to happen in any shonen series. And props to the author, props to the mangaka. They really handled it really well. And frankly, I think this is the best written shonen romance plotline ever written by anybody? I don't know. It's really hard to say because I think Ed and Winry really have a good romantic conclusion as well. And I will put this at the top. Kazue Kato did a really great job. And I think overall, I give props. It was really well written. It was fun. It was wholesome. It showcased the conclusion of every single character involved. Absolutely really good. And I highly recommend reading the last 3 chapters because it's just really put well together. A really good slow burn that ended in a very well concluded romantic subplot. Now, of course, there is a red flag. And I'm not talking about in terms of their relationship not working well. I'm talking about a red flag as in now that we have the confession, the way the story can go, Rin could literally die, but I don't know if that's what's going to occur. But there's always a chance. I think a lot of people who read shonen manga have that feeling that the MC usually ends up dying. It's a theory that a lot of people have for shonen writing because it's a trope. It's one of those tropes where the MC dies at the end. There's a lot of that with Luffy in One Piece. But it really well. So congratulations to Rin and Shiemi shippers. Congratulations to that victory, to that win. And yeah, it was fun. It was a fun read, and I can't wait to see how this concludes. Maybe Rin and Shiemi will have little baby Satan demons. Half Satan demons, I should say. So who knows? We'll see. Well, no, they'll be quarter because Rin is half human, half Satan. Quarter Satan babies. All right. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoy the ship as well and enjoy reading the last 3 chapters because they're really good. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.